Hello, this is Chuck Ridgway, Automation Technology Manager at Horner. Thanks for joining us for another Tuesday live stream. Well, all this month, we're covering customer requested topics, and we've got a good one for you today. It won't be very long, and at the end, we've got a big announcement to make, so you'll want to stick around for that for sure. Okay, here's today's topic. Using Setpoints with Horner controllers. Now, Setpoints is a feature that is available in Cscape and has been for a very long time. A lot of customers take advantage of it, but there's plenty who aren't aware of this feature. And we're going to cover this feature in a decent amount of detail today so you can decide if this is something you want to add to your machine control. Here we go. We're going to get started today by talking about Setpoints in general, and then a Horner Setpoint feature in particular. We're going to talk about how this feature is used, how you can add key variables to what we call a Setpoint table, how you can use these at runtime, and there'll be plenty of demonstrations throughout. Here we go. Okay, so what is a Setpoint in general? Well, in automation, a control system, an automatic control system that is attempting to maintain a process variable, a set point is the value that that automatic controller is trying to maintain. So that is what a set point is in general. Now in the Horner controllers, we have something called a set point feature. So what is a set point feature? Well, it's a feature that allows you to set up a table, which we call a set point table, with a bunch of key variables that you want to be able to initialize to a known value. And these are not variables that you're necessarily going to set to a known value every time the controller powers up, but you just want to make sure that these variables are set to a known value at key points. And when are those key points that you want those variables to have known values? Well, most commonly, it's on a download. It may be when you're doing program development and trying to make sure that the machine is going to react the way you want. And so it's starting out with known values, known safe values for key variables. Or maybe it's during deployment, where you're deploying the machine for the first time and you want to make sure that the customer receives the machine in a state where, again, these key variables are at known values where they can use the machine appropriately and then maybe make adjustments from there. Horner has a variety of different languages that are all available in Cscape. We have advanced ladder that's register-based, advanced ladder that is variable-based. That's the more modern approach to American-style ladder. Of course, we offer IEC as well with our standard IEC and then what we call enhanced IEC. Now, the Setpoint table feature is available in all these languages except enhanced IEC. So keep that in mind. Okay, so let's talk about how you create this Setpoint table in the variable-based languages. So you're going to start by just creating variables in general, all right? And any variable that ultimately is going to be included in the Setpoint table should be created as a retained variable, right? You don't want that to be a variable that resets to 0 every time it's powered up. That would defeat the purpose of that variable in most cases, all right? So for best practice, create any variable that's going to end up in the variable table as a retained variable. All right, now, where can you find the Setpoint feature? Well, in Cscape 10, on the Home tab, you'll find the Setpoint button towards the far right. Once you press that Setpoint button, you'll get the Setpoint table dialog to pop up. And of course, initially, it's going to be blank because there's no variables that have been added yet. So you can start by pressing the Add button. And when you do that, you'll have the ability to add variables one by one to the Setpoint table. Now you can either manually type them in, or you can use the variable browsing feature that's available in Cscape throughout to find the variables that you want to add to your Setpoint table. Now, once you've added the variables to the table, there's another step that's required. You need to type in or assign the known value to each of these variables that's in the Setpoint table. That's the whole point of the Setpoint values, all right? You can do that manually by double-clicking on each variable in turn and typing in the value. Or if you're online with the controller, and communicating, and the controller has all these variables in a state that you're happy with, then you could just get all the variables at once by going to the File menu in the Setpoint table and selecting Get Values from Controller. Now, what about using the Setpoint table feature at download time? Well, you always have the option on every download to download Setpoint values along with your program. There's an option that can be checked on the download dialog. All right, and it typically, or by default, it shows up as unchecked. Another option that you have, if you're creating a PGM file, for instance, and remember, a PGM file is a digital file or a binary file that you can send to a customer, maybe even just email it to them, for instance. They can put that binary file on a memory card, and then they can update the controller from the system menu from that memory card. Okay, so if you want to create a file like that, which we call a PGM file, and you want to include Setpoint data as part of the PGM file, then there's a step you must take. So go to the main settings dialog, which is available from the Cscape Wave button. Make sure you're on the Logic Editor tab, and then there's an option that you can check to export Setpoint data as part of the PGM file. And if you do that, every subsequent time that you create a PGM file, that Setpoint table will be included in that file. Now, what if you want to update your Setpoints live, okay, in the controller? You want to download your Setpoints live to the controller, but you only want to download the Setpoints. You don't want to download the program at all. Well, you can go to the Setpoint table, and you can select under the File menu the Send Values to Controller option. If you do that, then all the variables included in your Setpoint table will be updated to the values you have prescribed, and your program is not updated, just the Setpoint values are. Okay, what about uploading Setpoints? What if you want to be sure that every time you do an upload, that Setpoint table will be included? That's really important to make sure that that value's there for maybe some upload that you may need to do, some number of years from now. Well, to make that happen, you need to go to the Download Options dialog, which is available directly below the Setpoints button, and make sure that the Setpoint table is checked under the download options. Now, it won't affect your download, ironically. It'll really just affect your upload. So again, if that option is checked, every time you do an upload, you'll not only get your program, you'll also get the Setpoint table. Okay, now let's say that you don't necessarily want to use the Setpoint feature, but you're looking for an alternative method to set a series of variables to known values, but you don't necessarily want to do it every time you power up. You just want to do it maybe the first time a new machine powers up. Well, you can use a technique that I've used before, and I think my colleague Nate Beachy also has used this, where you can set up a retained Boolean variable. I call mine initialize once, and then in your logic, when that variable is off, it enables a series of move blocks that sets those key variables to known values. And then after those move blocks are complete, it basically turns itself on using a set coil. So because it's a retained variable and that's a set coil, what that means is on subsequent power-ups, that variable will already be on, and so these move blocks will not be executed. So that's a way you can set a machine up with some known values to key variables, but only do it the very first time. All right, let's go take a look at the Setpoint feature in Cscape 10. All right, let's explore the Setpoint table. All right, first step is let's make sure that any variable that's going to end up as part of the Setpoint table is a retained variable, that we've assigned it as a retained variable. That's very important, okay? It must be done that way for standard IEC, and it should be done that way for variable-based advanced ladder. Okay, so once we know that we've got a group of variables that are retained, then we can start building our Setpoint table. And again, the Setpoint table is going to include variables that we want to be able to initialize to a known value. All right, to build our Setpoint table, we need to go to the Setpoint area. So under the Home tab, we can select Setpoints. And as you can see here, I've already created my Setpoint table here. And when I added individual variables, I did it by pressing the Add button and then browsing for the variable that I had already created. All right. The next step is to set the value for that variable, that known value, because when you add a new variable, it doesn't come in with a value. All right. So I can double click on a variable to set its value. All right. Another option I have is under the File menu, I can get all the values from the controller if I'm currently connected to it and online, and if the values of all these variables is where I want them to be. If it's not, then I'm not going to use this feature. I'll just probably type them in manually. Okay, so we've established our set point table. Now, how do these values get into the controller? Well, one way to get them into the controller is to use the File option here and send the values to the controller. So if we take a look at what I have going on the bench, you can see I've kind of gathered all my key variables on this one screen. And then if we go back to Cscape and we choose File, Send Values to Controller, after I've validated this, I can go take a look and we can see that, yep, sure enough, those values have been set. I didn't update the program or anything. I just updated those particular values. Now, if I want to update these values on a download, how would I do that? Well, when you do a download, you always have the option of pressing the set point values option here. And then not only will your program be updated, but also your set points will be upgraded as well, or updated as well. Now, a couple of the things I'll show you. Let's go to the download options area, which is found right below set points. All right. And in this scenario, if we want to make sure that when we do a program upload, that the set point table is included, we want to make sure this is checked. Okay. It doesn't actually affect download, just the upload. All right. And then another thing I will show you under the settings area here, under the logic editor, and that is if you want set points to be included in your PGM file. If you create a binary PGM file, then you'll want to make sure this check mark is checked here. Okay. All right. So that is an exploration of the set point feature. So that does it for our technical topic for today. Now for the big announcement. It's time to sign up for the Ethernet IP Scanner beta program. What is Ethernet IP Scanner? Well, an Ethernet IP scanner has the ability to control devices over Ethernet IP, not just reside on the network as an I/O adapter. Now, Ethernet IP scanner capability is new to the Horner controllers as of April of this year, coming up here in a couple months. But before we release it to the world, we want beta users to use it, give us some feedback, and then if necessary, we'll make some adjustments prior to release. So if you're someone that works with Ethernet IP and you'd love to be able to control Ethernet IP devices from a Horner controller, and you'd like to be part of the program, then sign up today. And you can do so by sending us an email to the address there on the screen, and we'll get you signed up. That's going to start here in the next week or two. So it's going to start really quickly. So we'd love you to get signed up right away. And again, the plan is to release the feature in the April timeframe with Cscape 10.2 Service Pack 1. When that happens again, we'll be releasing the Ethernet IP scanner. Okay? All right, so sign up for that today. Now, if you'd like to sign up for training, just go to our website. You'll find a variety of different courses available, a beginning course, an advanced course. So again, go to our website at the URL you see there on the screen and get signed up today. If you'd like to interact with Horner, you can do so on our website at hornerautomation.com. You can find our YouTube channel, and there you'll see hundreds of videos available to peruse. And then if you want to keep up on the latest Horner news, you can do so on LinkedIn. Now, next week, we almost had a bit of a gaffe. I discovered that the topic we were originally planning on presenting, which was using the Horner CPU 250 modular controller as an I/O device on Ethernet IP, I discovered we already covered that last summer. So we're going to take the opportunity instead to show you how to use the new Ethernet IP scanner that we're getting ready to add to the beta program and that will be released in April. And we'll be demonstrating how to use the Horner CPU 250 as an Ethernet IP I/O device, but being controlled by the Ethernet IP scanner that's part of a Horner controller. All right, so join us next week for this topic. It's a great opportunity to see a preview of an important new feature. If you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, don't hesitate to do so. It doesn't cost anything. And if you choose notifications when you subscribe, you'll be notified every time we go live or every time we post a new video. Okay, so until next week, let's all get out there and do some good.